The media planner agent, imagine as the agent is building the actual plan. The agent is asking additional kind of guiding questions to a person who is doing this and saying, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? And also, here are some examples of how this worked in the past. And in some cases, also giving you a counterfactual, basically saying, if you don't do this, this is what happened in the past. So to me, as I look at the agents, I see them as teachers. A teacher that never sleeps, a teacher that's never grumpy, a teacher that never says, God, my gosh, I wish I did something else. I should have retired years ago and not dealt with some junior media planners doing X, Y, and Z. So to me, that's a great opportunity.
Hi, I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
Today, our expert is Mark Polyak, the Chief Product and Technology Officer at MINT.ai, and he's going to talk about the process that they're going through with clients today to kind of completely rethink the whole media buying, planning process. Agencies, big marketers, like members of the MMA, and then sort of some of the opportunities and challenges around that. So, Mark, glad you could join us.
Very, very nice to be with you, Greg and Rex. And definitely not the spies today, more of AI agents, that's for sure.
Should we cover that? Should we check that off the box real quick? So, Mark, you actually did work in sort of trying to find bad guys for some period of time early in your career. Is that what you said?
Yes, I spent about 16 years working in national security, mostly focusing on three problems. Who they are, where they are, and what makes them tick. And what makes them tick has really kind of brought me into this space as well.
Okay. Well, who they are, where they are, and what makes them tick is exactly advertising and media planning, isn't it? So
it sounds like that's customer segmentation, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely works for a world of counterterrorism as well.
Yeah, great. Well, so tell us a little bit about what Mint does. Give us a little bit of idea of how you're applying that skill set.
Sure. So MINT.ai is a company that focuses on revolutionizing advertising research management. Right. If you will, the idea is to be able to combine various sources of data all across various DSPs in order to kind of bring a unified experience across media buying, media planning, media buying, and then financial reconciliation. And then on top of all of that, the next stage or the next phase of our evolution is to also add AI agents in the process to, as much as possible, get rid of a manual process, and also to create, if you will, an ARM hybrid workforce, where any media planner who is working with our system by default has 6, 7, 8 AI agents working tirelessly, solving problems for them.
So, Mark, listen, I know that you were at Ipsos for a little while, so you're not you didn't just chase bad guys. You also have a background in some marketing insights and so on. But I guess, what made you come to Mint.ai? Like, what sort of intrigued you about that sort of challenge and opportunity to apply your technical skills, to mention?
No. So for me, as I mentioned, once I got into the world of data integration, I got really fascinated with how do you integrate multiple data streams to answer questions, right? So in a process, I got three patents in this particular issue, and I worked for Ipsos initially as the head of analytics for North America, which is the largest region for Ipsos. And when I went to Mint, and the reason for it is I felt that what an amazing place that is really trying to completely break through and modify the entire industry that in essence right now relies on massive armies of people trying to kind of get work done. I saw it as a very much a fertile opportunity to add AI on top of already existing very solid data warehousing process.
So let's talk about that the agent and that workforce and how you architect that. So you have this idea that you have a human person who has maybe 5 to 10 AI agents that are doing different aspects of their job that they're supervising. Give us a tangible example of how far you are into doing that, what type of agents that you've built, what the feedback loop is with the human.
Sure. So if you think about this, in order to build any kind of agents, and agents, to be honest, is probably the biggest snake oil word of the 2025. You really need to have good uniform data, right? So everything starts with data. If your data is not great, if your data is not properly integrated, the answer that you're going to get is not going to be great. Then the second thing that you also need is you need to have a very solid workflow in place, right? You need to understand the business rules in order to properly connect your data to your agents and also to various types of platforms and processes that you're working with. So imagine that you're able to, for example, add things such as. So actually, one more thing that I will add is another important evolution that Mint is getting itself into is not just agents, but multi-agent systems. And that is really key because the idea here is that every agent comes with its own specialization. And then on top of it, you have a series of supervisor agents that perform, if you will, sanity check on top of each agent. This way, you're eliminating the possibility of hallucinations and also false results, as well as, if you will, specialized knowledge of one agent carrying it away from each other. If you will, think about it as you're going to a visit to a doctor. A doctor basically says, you know what, I have no idea what is wrong with you. Let me send you to a bunch of specialists. Each specialist uses their unique knowledge and also their unique exams to understand what is wrong with you. And then all of them bring it back to the general practitioner who says, yeah, I think you need X, Y, and Z, take a few pills, say a Hail Mary, and you'll be okay. So from that standpoint, it's kind of a similar process where all the agents are working with each other at the same time, and then you have a supervisor agent at the top double checking the work and making sure, for example, that in case of media planning, that the work that they're doing is consistent with the overall brief that is given.
Can
So
you give a
Marcus-
specific example on that?
Yeah.
Because I think we got the general idea of multi-agents and workflow and built on top of
Yeah,
data.
so
But
basically,
what's
think of it as in this particular case, think of it as an agent which is strategist that will basically take a look at the overall brief to understand if a brief is properly set up, if the question that the person is asking has all the right information that could make a media plan work. Let's say it is what type of audience you're trying to reach, how much budget do you have, what is the phasing that is required, et cetera, right?
Are those different agents doing each of those specific pieces?
Correct.
And when you say agents and workflow, I mean, just for some of the listeners, Anthropic wrote a great paper kind of pulling these apart. I basically said year of 2025 will not be the year of agents, it'll be the year of workflow. Mainly because you can have so much more, more deterministic control with a little bit of AI agency to make some decisions. Are you really talking about specific agents where you just are giving a goal and letting it figure itself out, or are you kind of constraining it more and saying these are the set of tasks that you should be doing in this sequence and order, more of a workflow?
So it's kind of a combination. It depends on how far do you want to go. So some people prefer to think of agents as helpers for a media planner, where a media planner can come in on the process and say, hold on one second, I see an inconsistency here. Why don't you change things up and do this? And then the agents, depending on their specialty, will start working for this issue based on the directions. Some people, again, depending on philosophy, would like the agents to go through the entire process and provide, for example, a media plan, and then start intervening into the process and saying, thank you for creating this. Why don't you look at this, and this? But yes, we do have some agents that are focused on workflow, like for example, workflow of the actual media buy within the DSP, or trafficking, for example, or there may be a workflow that's focused on financial reconciliation of the actual invoices. Those are specifically, just like you said, one specific task that is given, versus a media planner agents. They are like for example, there are a suite of agents which include, let's say, a strategist, a data analyst, a planner, or maybe in some cases a forecasting agent, maybe in some cases a budget optimization agent, depending on what is actually required.
So, Mark, the agents aren't oriented. I mean, listen, how current agencies are organized, having been there and done that job, sometimes there's a TV buyer, there's a radio buyer. Those people they might be someone. So the digital buyer is usually completely different. There's somebody who specializes in buying outdoor. I mean, it tends to be organized by sort of those. Although there's a marketing media strategist in the middle, they tend to be organized by channels. Is that what the agents need to be? Because you actually have now said, no, there's different processes of that, which is like you said, I mean, just this even reconciliation of sort of the actual goddamn plan. It takes so much time with these things. So how, you get that far? Yeah.
That is a plan. That is a plan to be able to kind of go for the entire process. Right now, we do have ability to look at the omnichannel and basically modify cost allocation per each channel, depending on what's actually needed.
Okay. How is it? Do you build in a creative side to this thing too? Like, so media plan is about placing ads. Generally, it's often made by somebody else. Although I see more and more media companies actually are taking on creative development because it's so extensive. Are you building that element in there too?
No, we're not. We're not focusing on creative analytics. It's more of creating kind of like the most optimal media plan to support activation.
Got it. Well, let's talk about that data, because the agents build on top of data. You made a really important observation. I mean, it's interesting if you go into ChatGPT or Gemini or Meta or pick your favorite one and ask it for a media plan on such and such a product and describe a product, it will give you a media plan, but it will be fairly rudimentary because it's not using any proprietary data, right? It's using what it sees as a general idea that people have written about and talked about. So this retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, or the ability to really focus the agents on the data, seems like that's going to be the key ingredient.
So to me, it's really about four things, Rex. Mm-hmm. One is just like you said, it's RAG. RAG is definitely something that you need to use, and there's multiple approaches to RAG. You cannot use the conventional RAG. Does not take you far, right? So the second thing is nothing is better than real data, obviously, and the more real data of campaigns of your customer that you have, the better. And that shouldn't surprise you at all. But then at the same time, the other element which is also important is being able to bring in synthetic data. Okay, synthetic data, or if you will, some people call it made-up data, but it's not always necessarily made up. It's a data that has fair elements of real data in it, and you can probably do it based on existing campaigns or previous campaigns of the same customer, or you can do it based on data of similar customers that may decide to pull the learnings together, where in a synthetic data set, data is completely anonymized, and you are unable to basically tell who the previous clients of his data, or or previous users of his data have been. But at the same time, it still includes certain elements that you can use to train your data set on. And then the other element, which is really important, which is coming in new, is something called MCP, which you may have heard of, Modeling Context Protocol. MCP to me is could potentially be a game changer. The best way to describe it is kind of like a banking protocol SWIFT, where let's say every bank agrees that this is the way that they're going to move money across the planet, right? Something that has existed for a very, very, very long time. So imagine with MCP being able to very, very quickly utilize agents that belong to data of somebody else, or agents that could take you to a data lake of somebody else and integrate this data on a fly, instead of having to wait for a custom integration or an API build out.
Yep. So Bill, go a little deeper into that. And I imagine maybe you're thinking about you're potentially using GraphRag. So well, let's start with the synthetic data or the customer data. What would be some examples of data that you'd be using and looking at, and how does that help the media planning agents do what they need to do?
So imagine being able to take data from thousands of campaigns that focus on particular type of demographic, that have maybe seasonal variation or not, or alternatively take data from business outcomes and being able to anonymize and privatize that data and create it into a uniform data set that could be used to provide recommendations where the initial media plan that you created may need to be modified, or there may be a better channel mix as compared to the one that you initially made.
Well, I'll let Greg jump in if you'd like. But so, I mean, if you go through that part, I think one of the challenges I've seen when I've tried to look with those data sets is that the variation in performance is driven by, on the one hand, whether or not you're talking to the right people. So if you anonymize it and you lose whether you're talking to a male or a female or young or old or all these different unique variables, that
But
seems
this
like
is not the data. This is not the data that you would anonymize, Rex. You would anonymize, let's say, any kind of personally identifiable data.
Got it. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and that the reason why I was asking that and asking about GraphRag is I imagine that underlying that would be an audience graph of different types of relationships that different variables have, and then
Correct.
both with the purchase
And
product and the media that they're using.
yeah, so in our case, and I'm not gonna, and I will only mention two, because if I mention more, I will disappear. In our case, we would use GraphRag and also document-oriented rag, and a few other toys. But yes, you're right. GraphRag is one of the things that we would use.
Hey, Rex, I think you should explain what GraphRag is, just so the listener understands.
Yeah, I mean, retrieval augmented generation, initially, you can just think of that as being, you can imagine it being a spreadsheet and you're looking up information. That's one way of organizing it in a very structured way. GraphRag takes it, and if you think about the different nodes potentially being clusters of information, and as you try to find something that's relevant, instead of looking it up in a spreadsheet and finding a specific cell, you'll see sort of a cluster of information that is organized to make the search and retrieval a lot faster in the
And more accurate.
yeah, and more accurate. I mean, you might be able to build on explain. I'm trying to think of how to explain it simply without a visual. I'm used to a GraphRag. You just show the visual, the old spreadsheet versus the new. It's super easy to get the difference. Mark, maying you can build on what.
No, I
Greg's
think you're right. Greg, basically, in a sense, is a way to quickly searching for data and organizing data. I mean, that's the best way that I could explain it. One of the reasons why people use RAG is also in order to avoid is for two reasons. One is to provide one is to make basic agents smarter on client specific data, because you're basically training it on the data of a client. And second is in order to avoid hallucinations.
Okay.
So
well, yeah,
those are two key reasons why you use RAG.
Hey, Mark. Let me ask you a question. So listen, you're in there. I think I saw on the website, Dentsu, LVMH, Mastercard. I don't know if they're a payment processor or also a client. Yeah, maybe. Listen, you got some pretty big names, on the website there. L'Oreal, I think, was in there, but I didn't say them already. So, you come in, you start talking to clients. I'm sure you've made those rounds as you're now building a product strategy for the company, or to further the company's aims. What was the thing that's caught your attention? Like, what have they said back to you that now MINT.ai is providing? Like, look at it from the customer's perspective, who doesn't have an understanding of RAG or GraphRag or any of these other things. What are they
Who
saying?
frankly
back to
does
you?
not care, right?
And well, I would, they should care, but yes, but they don't care. Yeah, they probably, let's assume they don't care. But how do they look at their jobs? Because I'm trying to think back in the media planning job that I was doing, which is way back when. It's gotten so much more complex. There's so much.
Did they have
information
computers
moving
back
around.
then, Greg? They did,
What's
right?
that?
They just came.
I was the tech guy. That's how bad the agency business was at that time, Rex. But Mark, what do they feed back to you that oh my God, that's so helpful. Oh my God, I'm so glad it does that.
I think some of the most basic things is really very quick data discovery, right?
Okay.
Very quick data discovery, very quick ability to do historical comparison with data, and so ability to very quickly form hypothesis,
Okay.
and also cross check hypothesis. I think that's just kind of like very quick, immediate thing. The other thing is, just like you said, agents are new, Greg.
Yep.
Agents are new, and what we are in the process of is basically showing people this is what it can do for you, and build trust.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, one of the things that everybody's asking for, and this is really key, is how can you tell me if your agent is providing accurate information? How can you tell me how reliable?
Are we talking about agents? We talk about my staff at this point. I think that's sort of the. I mean, Mark, I say that. I mean, I said that whether Rex laughed because he kind of knows what I'm referring to. We just went through a series of campaigns here for the MMA, right? Paid media,
Right.
we're basically running Trade Desk, Viant, I think, were the two places we most were. I could not believe how unbelievably complicated it was.
And a
to
system
feel
like ours
some-
provides transparency. Like you basically have
Well,
everything in one place,
Yeah,
and
but
you can cross. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but so did we sort of, and this was a pretty simple campaign. But the amount of time we went back and forth to understand if we were pulling the right data in the right way at the right time, and I don't think there's any AI that could have fixed that because it wasn't marked well in the platforms, and therefore we really had to. I mean, I was shocked at how unbelievably dopey that exercise became. I don't know, Rex. You watched what we did, right?
Yeah, no, but I think that's probably why Mark started off with a point about the foundation is the organization of data.
Yeah.
In a way that the AI can understand, which is where the graph rag comes up. And you mentioned, you use a few other techniques as well.
But why haven't we structured the data well already? I mean,
Well,
that's what's funny about
one
it. If I just
benefit-
went through all that bullshit, why are we still so unclear? AI is not going to fix that.
Well,
It's gonna-
interestingly, AI actually does a better job traversing some of that information. In the first world of media planning, it was all about having things in a very structured relational database. Like think of a spreadsheet with columns and rows,
100%.
and basically looking up information. Like you wanted to have a question about people who are likely to attend a business conference,
Yep.
and then you find the people that said yes to a survey or have done that in the past, and you find all their other characteristics, and you generate a crosstab.
Yep.
That data had to be perfectly organized to be able to retrieve that information. With AI, AI can actually have a lot more liberty to look at information that's maybe not so perfectly structured, maybe is a little bit more messier, and it can make inferences, and it can be 80 to 95% right.
Rex is making a great point. Actually, 2 points here. Point number one is, and I'll be very transparent with you, when it comes to rules-based approaches, which is a classic statistical techniques.
Understood.
What you will see is that the accuracy is still going to be much higher as compared to new generation of AI, right?
Okay.
Just it is what it is.
Okay.
So it's going to be more accurate. So what you actually see is typical approaches nowadays use a hybrid, where you see a combination of rules-based approaches and you also see Gen AI. And the two together do a fairly solid job in dealing with a problem, Greg, that you just mentioned, in being able to help organize better and make sense out of a mess when you have this mess. And a lot of times what I've seen is the reason why data is badly organized is not because people who started were bad organizers to start with. It's more of sometimes what you've seen is a very typical normal scope creep, where people started asking more questions of the data than the data was initially designed for, right?
Okay. But again, here's the thing I'm trying to get to, Mark and Rex, is that I don't know if I'm clear in my own mind about how AI then somehow, or MINT.ai for that matter, makes it that much better. Because, listen, we all know that having better structured data makes it like I'm bought in, right? But near as I can tell, it's 2025, and that's still kind of a goddamn mess. So if we didn't fix it before, and it's wasted huge amounts of time, And maybe the big agencies, the Dentsus, the others are, I suspect not, Rex. I mean, you're working with them around the AI personalization. Do you, and not to call out anybody by name on my board members, but do you think all of them are structured and organized around this?
No, but that's why I think Mark's an interesting guest, and I want to hear his response. I'll give you mine, which is that we're right in the middle of it. I don't think we have this all the way solved. We have a lot of people working on it and making some really neat progress and delivering some parts. But one of the things that Jared, my son, who's been working with me on some media planning type work with iHeart, that he did is to look at a website like yours, he has an AI agent that reads through the website and tries to infer the type of customer it thinks that you would have, and then it uses this retrieval augmented generation data from Claritas, which is all their 68 segments that you can choose from, and it tries to align what it thinks are the top 5 or 10 segments out of that 68 list that match what it inferred from your website. Now that is an interesting process. It's one of many agents, but it actually saves the time.
That's interesting.
It's reasoning. But Greg, the very very simple answer is half of the stuff that I'm describing was not even available 6 months ago.
Good point. Especially with Graph Rag, that was too slow before.
Graph Rag was not working. MCP started in 2024 by Anthropic, and only maybe about a month ago was accepted as a standard by OpenAI. Some of his techniques, some of his techniques are basically younger than my pair of pants.
Okay.
And I think this is really important to understand, because this is so fascinatingly new. Which is kind of cool.
Okay, so Mark, your point in part is that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, but it's your point in part is that, hey, MINT.ai, you're at MINT.ai. They hired you, you joined them because, listen, let's face it, media is a messy, messy problem. Super messy problem, no question. The incredible frustration I just had in the little tiny campaign that we ran on behalf of the Possible event is just absolutely insane. And so I can't even imagine when it's magnitude across, from every other sort of, walled garden and media property out there that they're buying in many different ways and many different styles of many different media companies. And so your point in part, that was a long way of saying, the point in part is that you guys are best situated to try to bring order to this chaos. It's not going to happen next week.
Greg, I mean, basically, based on everything that you're telling me, you would make a perfect and ideal sales target. I will forward you to our sales department before the conversation. Since I definitely don't do sales. But, But in essence, what we do is we help unify data, and then on top of it, what I would say we are doing right now is we are solving the problem of of acting directly on top of our platform. So let's say you created a media plan, you created your channel, you created your strategy, and you want to activate it directly inside the platform, you can.
I like the activation part being in the same place. I want to come back to the MCP point because Anthropic's paper was a really important breakthrough in advance for how we think about agents working together. And it allows the ability to containerize or atomize agents as their own individual things that can be called by others. When you think about your business and where it's going, do you think that you'll be making your AI agents individually available? Like if you had a really cool agent that did something for Greg, which was maybe checking his tags and making sure they knew where they were placed or something like that.
Love that. Or running social media. I mean, I'll give you the list. I have a list.
So he does have a list.
Yeah,
I have a list.
Or do you think you're going to just be more like a SaaS company where it's a bundle and you have to buy the bundle of features and functionality? I'm just curious how you see that business evolving.
So the way that we're working on right now is we're basically creating a bundle right now, like a classic SaaS. Here are 5 different agents which make up a media planning multi-agent system. Go ahead, take them and play them. However, we also understand that some of our customers will have customized needs, right? So there's probably going to be a need to create an agent that is a special agent for Greg, for example, in addition to that bundle. and it's okay. It makes sense. Maybe Greg also wants his agent to only have access to his own data and only his own use cases, and we do it for him. It sits in his environment, and it only plays in his garden, and
How
that's okay.
far away do you think we are from being able to have those agents for hire? I mean, it's a good vision, but it's I think you're probably where everyone else is at, where people aren't selling their individual agents. There isn't a pricing mechanism or a way of I guess on tokens or something like that. You could come up with one, but I haven't seen that yet. I've seen what you described, which is people still selling the bundle, the multi-agent system as opposed to agent for hire.
To be honest, Rex, right now, multi-agent systems probably have the best performance.
Yeah, it's true
From
because you have the
yeah,
supervisor overlooking and double
yeah,
checking the work and so
yeah.
forth.
It's a supervisor overlooking the work. Plus, there's also an agent that focuses, for example, on compliance to make sure that, for example, hey, I want to buy this versus that. Well, guess what? By laws and regulations in this country, you cannot buy X, Y, and Z in this particular place, for example. So I would say that the real answer is when the performance of single agents will improve to a point where people feel comfortable selling them, they will.
Yeah, well, then people could also sell a multi-agent bundle as well. I mean, I guess the interesting part is as we think about how the landscape changes, you have a workflow where you're trying to accomplish something, which is communicating with a customer or person or prospect to influence their decisions. We're going to have disruption in that because more and more we're going to have our own AI agents working on our behalf to make those purchase decisions. And then but you also still have, as you said, you still have to decide where to place the ads, reconcile the financials, and it looks like you're going through the workflow and you're checking off and building agents where you think that they could behave pretty well
That's
and
correct.
remove
You,
a
you
set of
got you
work.
got to
Is that
start you
right?
got to start where you got to start there, Rex. I mean, this is so new that you have to be able to eliminate manual pain, but also build trust. If you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna try to take on the whole world, uh, people like Greg will basically say this is bullshit, or they will say like this is not accurate enough. I don't want to touch this. So you got to start with things that you believe you can solve.
I think what would be interesting around this market, I don't know if you can share it or not, but it's kind of like, what's a product roadmap? Like, where do you think you can provide the most value? I mean, obviously, you're picking the areas you think that can provide the most value, either reduction in expenses or maybe a boost in performance. Do you have a sense? Can you kind of give us a sense of the priorities? Like, hey, we got to do this we got to work here on sort of setting up segmentation targeting. Part of, I think, the background you come from at Ipsos, I think. Or we got to set up hey, how do we connect to the individual different media channels? Or how do we do
So
analytics on this? How do we do verification? How do we do, how do we,
So I would basically say the areas where I would say we probably can do most and
yeah,
where our product roadmap is focused on. It's really focused on agents for media buying and activation. Okay, and it's also focused on as I mentioned before, eliminating the manual pain out of financial reconciliation.
okay, yeah,
Even, for example, think about the invoice matching. Think about how much work goes into some of that.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
It's beyond insane that that's still an issue on the table, by the way, just
but,
FYI. I
but,
mean, when
but,
I
it,
ran the
but it
IB
is.
back in the early 2000s, early 2000s, I mean, that was like the number one topic. They spent so much time trying to reconcile it, which is why, we wrote the impression measurement guideline at the time to sort of at least slow down that sort of pain point. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good idea for agents. I mean,
Yeah.
because you would hope that an agent would be able to make enough inference to connect the dots, and then you could have a few layers of supervision and checking. So I think, I mean, it's a smart place. You're sort of starting where the skinny edge of the wedge is picking something that is mundane, repeatable, but not
Yeah.
structured well enough that any human wants
That's
to
right.
do it
Plus,
every day,
plus
right?
also that last thing that you said is quite key. I think if you try to introduce agents that are taking over some of the human work, like real human work, high quality human work, you definitely will engage with resistance, societal resistance and cultural resistance. So the question is, how do you build situations where people on a client side are happy and comfortable with engaging with agents rather than see them as potentially replacing them or creating issues for what they consider to be their core skill set or core work.
You talk to us a little bit more about that, where you're seeing that fear of automation feeding in when you're engaging with marketers or agencies.
Well, I mean, on my side, I really don't, given kind of a problem.
Yeah, because you're going to talk to management, Mark. They're not worried about letting people go. I mean, the whole point of an agency, the whole point of agencies is to keep their margin compression just either not too far behind what their clients demanding they do. That's what the whole thing's about, right? It's all about just keeping slightly
I
low.
understand, but also imagine that in some ways we can potentially increase their margins by getting rid of a lot of that manual work that I just told you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But what about
right.
you made an interesting comment in some of the pre-call part about the role of junior people in marketing. So, Greg and I have twins that are around the same age. Mine are just coming out of college.
Mine are actively employed, by the way. And by the way, they're in the media. One of them is in the media business. But go ahead, Rex.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, talk about how Amanda develops her knowledge set in a world where, first of all, people don't want to go in the office anymore. They want to work from home. If you're older and wealthier and established enough, you've got the leverage to say, I'm not going to go in the office. So who trains the junior people? And the AIs are increasingly taking over their jobs. So how do you see that? Yeah, talk to us a little bit how you see that playing out.
I actually see this playing to my advantage, what you're describing. Because I think Greg asked me a very good question early on. He said, how do you make sure, if you will, that human stays in a loop? I mean, that was a basic.
No, I didn't ask for human stay in the loop. I didn't advocate for that.
You did.
I did. I wanted the human in the loop.
Rex wants it. I want the humans out of it.
Hold on. One of you guys asked me a question about, do you see it as solving the workflow problem or doing the entire thing?
I did. Yeah, I did ask you that. Right? Could it actually execute the campaigns? Was the variation I was going versus sort of is there a workflow efficiency? And then my real element, my questions always come back to then, or is it performance boost? Can we sort of make better decisions than we would otherwise that would boost the performance?
And Greg's motivation was to take the human out of the loop in that question.
Fair enough. But that's actually really interesting because the media planner agent, and I'm happy to actually at some point give you guys a demo so you can see what I'm talking about. I think that will explain quite a few things. But imagine as the agent is building the actual plan. The agent is asking additional kind of guiding questions to a person who is doing this and saying, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? And also, here are some examples of how this worked in the past. And in some cases, also giving you a counterfactual, basically saying, if you don't do this, this is what happened in the past. So to me, as I look at the agents, I see them as teachers. A teacher that never sleeps, a teacher that's never grumpy, a teacher that never says, God, my gosh, I wish I did something else. I should have retired years ago and not dealt with some junior media planners doing X, Y, and Z. So to me, that's a great opportunity.
You're creating an opportunity for a curmudgeon agent that does have the special custom instructions to do that.
Rex, I will create a curmudgeoning agent, and I will give you some royalties for the name, for naming convention.
That old media director, Rex.
You traded on
the
some
old
of
media
Greg's
director,
earlier
exactly.
From his earlier years. Are you really asking that question? Yeah, but okay, so I like that though. So your idea is that you are giving feedback. It is part of a learning process, and they're going to get smarter because of that interaction with the agent. And in many ways, you give more coverage because the agent doesn't care about work from home. The agent's right there for you. Okay,
that's right.
I got it. I like that.
The agent is always there. And there's another thing that our agents do. Speaking of product roadmap, agents actually grade how good your prompt is as you're kind of trying to do the actual work. So from that standpoint, again, that whole concept of a teacher, if a prompt is not good enough, it will offer a suggestion as to how to improve that prompt to make it more more appropriate based on the questions that you're actually asking.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you this, though. So let's go. This is a hard question. I don't know if you've got enough orientation to marketing to sort of interpret this one, but trust me, you're going to want to watch for this. Listen,
Uh-oh.
one of the fundamental problems of marketing is that marketers don't fundamentally understand how marketing works. We don't understand the science or the background of how to actually execute real growth strategies. And in fact, there's a thing that the MMA is working on. I won't go on and on here for the listeners, but there's a thing that the MMA is working on right now, but I believe is the reason why why CMOs get fired in 3 years. I think it's what's going on. There's a very good chance if you're brand-oriented, advertising CMO, this is the reason, because you're missing a whole church. Okay, so here's where my point is trying to go. If marketers don't really understand the strategy of making marketing effective and efficient and valuable and oriented towards incremental growth, which is what the goal's got to be, then what makes me think that the AI is going to figure that out? Or what confidence do I have the AI is going to figure out? Like, are you just building systems that they can say, hey, we want to target this kind of audience and this kind of way, and so you just let them do that? Or do you step in and say, no, that's actually pretty stupid. You shouldn't be doing it that way because that violates sort of basic principles of marketing strategy. You want to go down that path?
Oh gosh, where do I go?
Yeah.
I think that there's a couple of ways to break this apart, right? I think philosophically speaking, you may not know how you got there, but you may see some business outcomes for certain things. Not for every.
So if we orient them towards business outcomes, we hope then the AI will be making the right decisions.
Yes, to a degree, and again, that's a very, very simple part of an answer. But at least there are certain things that we do know, and we can work with things that we do know.
I think that's a good answer, Mark. I mean, I think the part that's interesting to Greg's point.
Rex knows exactly what I'm asking about.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is that a lot of marketing people didn't come through marketing science. I mean, I happen to have a marketing degree. I studied marketing research and statistics and data scientist and went that route, but most people don't go that route. And so,
in fact, 75% of my board, Mark, do not have a degree in marketing, just so you know.
Yeah, and so it's interesting.
Marketing leaders.
Here's what's interesting, Greg. I think, and maybe if you combine what Mark said, plus the fact that there is becoming a body of work that that's empirical analysis, and all the case studies, Greg, that you're leading with Consortium for AI Personalization. If we were to give an ebook of all those case studies to the AI, and have that be some of the background context. Right. And then to Mark's point, you then have it self-tuning on the results that you want, whether that's a sale, a profitable sale, a LTV, a brand equity measure. I think the catch is that we do need to become better about what is it we want to have the AI optimize for, and then we have to begin to have the AI have a
Sometimes
curation
the AI will surprise you. I will give you an example from a very different industry.
We're in agreement, Mark, that there's a lot of magic on. We're seeing in the AI personalization studies that we're executing right now, there's truly, AI, there's magic. It's very funny. Obviously, it's not, but it's as close to what it feels like. But go ahead, give an example.
It's not, but I'll give you an example. It's a bit different. Feel free to cut her out at the end of the interview. But this is an example of something which actually happened about a year ago. And about a year and a half ago, there was a joint exercise between the U.S. and British Air Force. And in this particular case, they used an unmanned aerial vehicle to attack, to basically conduct a target attack on a facility. And every time then the UAV tried to do the attack, ground station refused the attack. Do you know what happened next? What happened next was that the AI figured out that the most efficient way for it to attack a target, to eliminate the target, was to first eliminate the ground station.
Yeah. That was a hypothetical case study I saw on the safety area. Yes.
Yeah, but that was actually a real joint exercise. So between the two militaries, which actually caused a fair amount of noise. Because the question was, are we seeing AI develop an emergent property and take a most optimized way forward? You
mean choosing its own, emergent being choosing its own path without any direction?
That was not previously identified by a human.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
so the question here, Greg, is
I'll take
to
that.
if we will take your theory that marketers don't really know what they're doing per se, right? Then the question is, can we see what paths the AI may potentially take? What kind of logic will it actually build by itself?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I-
I don't know if it's an
and it's back to the magic that exists within AI that really is inherent there. That's very funny to me.
Yeah,
I don't-
I mean, another good example was AlphaGo, where it learned to play a very complicated game and it developed strategies that humans hadn't employed before.
Right.
And
Right.
so, and
move,
I think
move 37 or move 47 or something. Wasn't that the story behind it?
yeah,
I don't
and,
know.
and there's so there was an example with some of the work that Caleb did with his with the book that we did. For MIT, but he had an AI that could self-drive and it could turn right or left and had these inputs for a positive or a negative. And if you're a human playing it, you'd only turn the steering wheel one way. Well, the AI figured out you could put both inputs in at the same time and cause it to reverse.
Yeah.
Behavior we never
Yeah.
expected, but was inherent in the math.
I-
So I do think that your point is right,
Yeah,
Mark,
it's
that
a
the
good one.
surface area for AI to figure out new ways to crack the code and sell things is really both an exciting opportunity and one we need to be a little bit careful about how it does that.
Well, that's the other thing is I like to sometimes show a slide where I show a situation around the use of AI in chess, right? So the last time, so in 1997, Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue. Like, I mean, everybody remembers it. By the way,
Yep.
Deep Blue was one of the first AI agents created, right?
Actually, I measured the ad for IBM on the Deep Blue with
That's awesome.
Kasparov. Greg and I wrote about it in our book. Actually, it's one of the first
No,
campaigns ever measured for digital
that's-
ad effectiveness.
That's great. So at
So
that
tell us
time,
the story.
at that time, Garry Kasparov basically said, you know what? It is very clear, unquestionably clear, that AI plus humans, AI like basically a computer plus human, will be much stronger than any computer. Well, guess what? 2005 was the last time then AI and computer won a game against AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So which is kind of crazy, right? So
It's kind of crazy. Well, that was his move 37 thing, which I looked it up here.
Yeah.
And stuff. It was move 37, and what happened is that they were in the middle of a tournament. The AI made a decision in this move 37. The announcers, if there's color commentary and Go, they're like aghast. They're like, "Oh my God, what did it do? What did it do?" And it wasn't until 100 moves later they went,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, that was right."
No, to me, it was a great shock because for two reasons. I was 17 and I used to play chess professionally, and
Yeah,
then
okay.
second is my mother was a member of Garry Kasparov's team at the time, so
Oh,
it was
funny.
it was very personal. Just kind of looking at that situation and being at the birth of history, if you will.
I love it.
You
Okay,
definitely
well,
shouldn't
listen.
underestimate AI. I mean, I think
Yeah.
your business is a testament to marketing and the industry and the technology industry. We need to begin to embrace this, lean into it, experiment with it, tackle
Yeah.
use cases where you can make some meaningful progress, and expect some bumps in the road, but you gotta start moving. So
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate your
Totally.
thoughts and ideas in this. Really, really helpful.
Fascinating. Hey,
Thank
Mark,
you. I'm
before
happy to show you happy to show you the demo at some point if you guys are interested.
I think we would be interested in that, Mark. I definitely would. As an ex-agency media planning guy and sort of trying to revolutionize the industry, I'd like to see it. But one question, though, before Rex signs
Please.
us off. You ready, Mark? Can you tell us any bad guys you caught?
No, next
Come
question.
on. There's got to be at least one bad guy. One bad guy?
How
Sorry,
about the
guys.
Venn diagram of the bad guys and the agency people? Let's talk about that.
There we go. Let's go back to that. Okay,
No,
Rex,
no.
take us out.
Okay,
He's
that's
not
it.
gonna-
Thank you, guys.
after we turn off the recording, he'll tell us
Thank
one.
you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
That's it for this episode of
Nice meeting you.
Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
I'm Greg Stewart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, or check us out on YouTube. You can get transcripts and more information on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com.
And if you want to learn more about MMA and MMA membership, please go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.